Artist. Today we're going to be making a polar bear. You can see one over my shoulder here. We're going to have a little fun with it. We're going to add a sweater and hopefully get to paint it too. So grab a crayon, a piece of paper to start with, and let's get started. So this is what you will need to do part one of the polar bear. You are going to need a white piece of paper, a black crayon, a paintbrush, paints, and a water cup. So we're going to start off by drawing the polar bear, and I'm going to try just drawing it with crayon. It saves me a lot of time, and then I don't have to trace over this later. If you really want to, you can start with pencil first and then trace over everything with crayon. But if you are starting right with crayon, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Crayon does not erase. All right, so you need to think about what you're doing and go kind of carefully and slowly because you will not be able to erase. The only thing you can do if you make a mistake is to flip your paper over and start over, but that's only one time. So make sure you're kind of going slowly, thinking about it. And one thing I like to do is use my finger to practice drawing my line first. That trains my brain into getting the lines and the drawing the way that I want it to be. So what we're going to start off with is a horizontal line. And a horizontal line is going to go in the middle of our paper. I'm not going all the way across. In fact, I'm going to leave about 3 finger spaces. Start right about there. And I'll probably end 3 finger spaces from the other side. So if you want to put a dot on each side, you can. And then all you have to do is draw a horizontal line. Make sure you're pressing fairly firmly with your crayon and not doing it too lightly, because later on we are going to paint some of this in, and it kind of helps keep the paint in place if you have drawn your lines darkly. All right, so I'm going to make this part, this is actually the top of my sweater. I'm going to have kind of a little fun with this, and the head is going to go above it. So I'm going to make this part of the sweater just a little bit bigger, like that. And then I'm going to make the sides to my sweater. So I'm going to practice this one 3 times. I'm going to start on the this line and go clear to the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, and it's okay if it bends just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Practice 3 times, and when you're ready, draw your line. Now, polar bears don't really wear sweaters. We're making a cartoon drawing of our polar bear, and it's kind of nice if we can add some designs and patterns to the sweater. So what I'm going to do, again, I am going to use about 3 fingers space, and I am going to draw a horizontal line across my sweater. I'm going to make some stripes on my sweater. You might end up with 2 or 3 lines, just depending on how big your fingers are. In these spaces, we are going to draw patterns. And patterns are, in art, we want to use lines, shapes, or dots, and repeat those in the same order. So for example, if I start with a shape like a circle, I can do that all the way across. I'm leaving a little extra space in between because now I am going to add something else in between. So maybe I will add an X with a line through it. Looks kind of like a snowflake. Of course, you can make up your own pattern. I think I can squeeze just a little bit of one right here. All right, I'm going to do something different in this space. So I'm going to come up with another design. Maybe I will do triangles. If I add a little line to them, it looks kind of like little evergreen trees. You don't have to do that either. You can make up your own. Remember, your ideas are great ideas. Maybe I'll just put a dot in between. These are examples of A, B patterns. If A was my dot and B was my tree, it would be A, B, A, B, A, B. You can also do something called A, B, B. So for example, if I do a heart, leave some space, I can do tube lines. I'm doing some vertical lines here. And now I have A, B, B, A, B, B, A, B, B. Remember, try to avoid using actual numbers and letters. We're just sticking with shapes and lines. It's also okay if you have a little tiny space here to come up with another pattern, and you could do something just kind of random. Maybe I will do some squares. And then a spiral in between. It's all right too if you would like to color in some of these, just to make them a little bit different. Okay, so you can see I've got my sweater design here. What we're going to do now is we're going to work on the head of the polar bear. Polar bears live in the Arctic and they live around a lot of snow. And to blend in with the environment, their fur is also white. So we don't actually have to paint it. We're just going to draw a curved line going up and then down. It curves, it bends, and then goes down to the sweater. So it starts on the sweater. Remember, practice it 3 times, and then go ahead and give it a try. Go slowly so you have control over your crayon. Now for some ears. Their ears are kind of on the top of their head, unlike people ears. So we're going to draw, it's almost the same shape, but it's starting off diagonally and going this way. So I'm going to go out, bend, back to the head. I'm going to do it again. Out, back to the head. There we go. I'm going to make a smaller shape inside that. Now, polar bears and a lot of other animals have something called a muzzle. It's not like people do not have muzzles. A muzzle is the part that sticks out and it has the nose and the mouth on it. So I'm just going to draw sort of like a rectangle right here. I don't want it to go clear up to the top because I'm going to put my eyes up here in a minute. So I start off about in the middle of the head, and I'm going to make a horizontal line to start with, but then I'm going to bend, go down, don't touch the sweater, turn, and then go back up. And if your line doesn't quite meet, that's okay. Just go back and bend it. Now I'm going to put the nose in here. I'm going to put a V, and then a line across the top. What shape is that? It's a triangle. I'm going to color this triangle in black. If you want to leave it blank, you can. We're going to make a vertical line going down, and then a curved line for the mouth. There, now you have the mouth and the nose on the muzzle. Now we're going to do the eyes. Ooh, what shape is this? It's a circle. If yours end up like an oval, it will still work. Now I'm going to color these in, but this time I'm going to leave part of that white so it looks like a reflection or a little spot of light shining on the eye. You could leave your eyes this way, or you can add eyelashes. And because this is a cartoon, we can have a little fun. Make some cheeks. If you want to leave the cheeks off, that's fine too. We are going to add some texture. Texture, remember, is how something feels when you touch it. And a polar bear is very furry. It has lots of hair all over it. So I'm going to draw some lines to show the fur texture of the polar bear. Now, if you want to add that all over the face, you can. Or if you're happy with just a little bit, that's fine too. At this point, you want to turn it over and write your name on the back. Don't write Miss Porter, write your name. And then also, please make sure you're writing your code, which is the initial for your teacher's name, dash, and then the grade that you are in. All right, so I'm going to turn this over, and if you have time today, I would like you to paint this. And you paint this with this kind of paint today, or I'm going to use tempera paints, And tempera paints, so these are tempera cakes. They are dry right now. And last time we painted, we used tempera paint that already had water in it. These are dry. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some water. I'm just going to add 2 drops or 3 to each. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my water cup right now and I'm just dripping 2 or 3 drops on each one. I might not use all of these colors, but that way if I decide to, they will be ready. Because right now, if they don't have water, these paints won't work. So I'm just going to add that. And I'm going to slide this over just a little bit so you can see my picture too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top of my picture when I'm painting, because I don't want to smear the paint. Now, remember, the polar bear has white fur, and so you don't need to paint that at all. Okay, what we're going to do is paint the inside of the ears, the cheeks, and if you left open your nose, you can paint that part too. We are also going to paint the sweater, so don't worry if you don't do a lot of painting on the polar bear's face, because we will get to paint down here too. So I think I'm going to use a red. Now, if you just swirl a little bit like that, you won't get very much paint on your brush, and you'll end up with almost a pinkish or a light red in that place, which is fine. If you want the color to be really dark red, you swirl a lot. Now, when you're swirling, it's important that you are not pressing hard with a brush. If you press too hard, it will ruin the paintbrush and your picture won't look very good. Notice when I'm painting that I'm using just the tip of my brush. That way, my paint just stays inside the lines. I'm going to paint both cheeks. Now, if you would like to switch colors to paint the sweater, you need to rinse out your brush, swish it around, wipe it off, just kind of gently. Don't tap your brush. If you're tapping your brush, you may end up splattering your paper or your friends that you're sitting next to. I don't like that. All right, so you can choose any of these colors to paint your sweater. I'm just going to use one color because I'm kind of running out of time. So if you have extra time, you might be able to use more than one of these colors to paint your sweater, but I think I'm just going to stick with one for right now. I kind of like this red-violet color, so I'm going to swirl my brush around, get some nice red-violet on here. And I am just going to use the tip of my brush, paint this top part. Really try not to get any paint on the polar bear's fur. Now you'll notice that sometimes the paint doesn't stick to the crayon. The crayon has wax, and wax and water do not like each other. And I added water to my paint, so it's kind of pushing the paint off the crayon. Now, you'll notice I outlined where I'm painting first. That helps me keep my paint in control. You have to keep adding water to your paintbrush and swirling gently. That way you keep your colors nice and bright. Now, if you start to hear your paintbrush make a scratchy sound or your paint starts to look fuzzy, do you hear that? That's your paintbrush telling you it's thirsty. It needs more water and then to be swirled on the paint. So you always add a little water when you're painting. I'm gonna go back over this. Try to keep your fingers out of the paint too. You can always hold your paper in a place where there isn't any paint. I like to do long strokes. Then my picture ends up looking nice and smooth. I'm going to fill in all of my sweater, clear down to the bottom. Oops, I missed a spot here. Go back and check and make sure you've got every place on your sweater filled in. All right, so now that this is painted, we need to put it on the drying rack, find a safe place to let it dry. We need to put the paint trays back over on the counter. Our brushes need to go in the sink. And our cups can be poured out and then set on the counter by the sink. I hope you had fun with this one. I know I did. And I can't wait to see what designs you come up with on your sweater. So I hope you have an art-tastic rest of the day and stay creative, everybody. Goodbye.